Yeah, I'm expecting a lot of people to put angry face emojis in the comments today. Oh yeah. What's going on, you guys? James here, and yes, I'm talking about some movies that I feel are overrated. Fine, I'll get it out there early because you know what? I know people are gonna come with their pitchforks and their... Just gotta breathe. Just gotta breathe. You guys, I'm ready to talk about 5 movies I think are overrated that people absolutely love and tell me I'm crazy for not liking as much as they do. Now listen guys, this isn't a list of what I think is the most overrated to the least overrated. These are just 5 movies that I've always said to people that are just really overrated and come up in conversation a lot. So I told them, you know what, let me make a video and let's talk about it. So that's what we're gonna do today. Now before I get into those 5 movies, if this is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James. Now if you're wondering who that is, that's me. And I love talking all about movies. So if you like what you hear and what you see, go ahead and hit the big red button below and subscribe to the channel. Now you're not going to want to miss out, so tap on the bell right next to it just to stay up to date with everything new. I got some awesome reviews for the rest of the month coming out, and you're not going to want to miss one of them. Oh boy, I'm so excited. Now if you want to see lists just like this more often, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. Like this video, share it with your friends, and go ahead and stay up to date with Real James on all social media accounts, because trust me you guys, there's a lot of conversation going on over there, especially about Star Wars recently. I wonder why. Okay, so let's lay out some ground rules. It's the tale of the tape, as they say in the boxing world. Listen, these are 5 movies, like I said earlier, that are not the worst to the least worst. I don't even know if that's proper to say. Now, most of these movies actually aren't bad. It's just that I think they're given more praise than they deserve. I really do like most of the actors in almost all of these films. However, there is one exception to that rule, because there's a film on this list that I actually cannot stand anymore and almost had to sit through an entire viewing for the 2nd time in a row on a very long road trip in Connecticut. Now, we'll dive into that story when the movie comes up, but let's go ahead and start off with the first film that I feel is really overrated. And that's La La Land, directed by Damien Chazelle, starring Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, John Legend, and so many other awesome cameos. Guys, when I first saw this film, I was in. After the highway scene, I thought, yes, we're gonna be in store for one of the best musicals that I've ever seen. It's so catchy, and I love Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone's chemistry. However, after like about an hour, I started to realize that this isn't a very good musical. And actually, no one can really sing that well except for John Legend. And I'm not necessarily sure why they decided to go with Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone. Don't get me wrong, those are 2 great actors and I love practically everything that they're starring in. The only thing is, do they really sing very well in this film? And the answer is no. And in a musical, for it to be pretty darn good, you have to have 2 leads, or at least the lead, that can sing really well. If this was all John Legend, I'd be pretty happy. The thing is, I don't necessarily think La La Land is a good representation of what a modern day musical can really achieve. A lot of people were singing its praises. I even had some friends that had a La La Land t-shirt, and I was thinking, okay, listen, this movie has a lot of diehard fans and the fan base is only growing from this point on. And then Oscar season comes around and it's nominated for virtually everything, and I thought to myself, are you kidding me? Moonlight came out the same year as La La Land and was 100 times better, and you're gonna tell me that people are singing the praises of only La La Land? It's kind of crazy to me. So the Best Picture award comes around and we all know what happens, right? They go and say La La Land, and in the middle of the acceptance speech they come out and say, mistake, Moonlight is actually Best Picture, and then everyone goes nuts. I literally was crying in bed. I was so excited. But the problem for me is that La La Land is still looked at as one of these amazing musicals. I just can't stand it. Some of the music was catchy, and don't get me wrong, I was singing some of the tunes as I got out of the theater, but it's really just a very average film. Okay, so the next film that I really feel is overrated, and I don't necessarily think it's a boring movie, 2001: A Space Odyssey, directed by Stanley Kubrick, starring Keir Dullea, Gary Lockwood, and William Sylvester. Okay, let me set the record straight. I appreciate 2001: A Space Odyssey, especially for what it did with cinema. It moved forward the way we can watch movies and what movies can do. I mean, this film was in space. No one at this time was shooting a film like that. And Stanley Kubrick, of course, you know, they used props and everything. They weren't actually in space. But I think it was really neat to see how the film kind of advanced the imagination of filmmakers. However, even though it is considered a classic and is heralded as one of the best movies ever, it is really just a drag. I mean, for almost 2.5 hours, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, is this movie gonna spark any sort of interest with me? Because in the beginning I was curious, Then towards the middle, I'm like, okay, this is still a movie I'm interested in, but I don't necessarily know where it's going. And then by the end, especially with that weird sequence in the last act, I thought it was a little overdone, and maybe I just didn't really care for it too much. And it's possible because I saw this movie as a 20-something-year-old, it didn't really hit me as hard as when people saw it years ago in theaters. But I don't think 2001: A Space Odyssey is as great as people say it is. Again, I know it's an unpopular opinion, but I really think that this isn't even Stanley Kubrick's best film. A lot of people I've spoken to think it's his best work, but I still say The Shining is his best movie. I love that film 110% more. I'd watch that film 5 times over before I go back and watch 2001: A Space Odyssey for a second time. I get it, maybe seeing it on the big screen has a different effect, but I still think the writing and the pacing was kind of a slog, and to get through it really was exhausting. At the end, I was thinking, okay, finally this movie is done, and if I'm thinking that at the end of a movie, it's not very good. So again, not a terrible film, not a film I would consider bad, I just think it's overrated. Okay, so let's move on to a movie that so many people feel is funny, and I don't know why they think it's so funny, because I don't necessarily think the film is as great as people say it is. Deadpool, directed by Tim Miller, starring Ryan Reynolds, Morena Baccarin, and TJ Miller, who is totally out of Hollywood now, isn't he? I saw Deadpool for the first time in theaters, and I thought, yeah, this is funny, it's hilarious. However, I saw it for a second time, and then a third at home, and I thought, okay, the jokes really don't hold up. So outside of the jokes, there's gotta be like really cool, moments of action and Ryan Reynolds being charming. Not really. I don't think that shtick really carries throughout the whole film. To be honest with you guys, I think it's almost annoying sometimes. Most of the jokes aren't really those that you can go back and say, outside of shock value, are really funny. Some people will, come to me and tell me they love this scene and this particular scene, but can I be honest with you? There's really not one scene in particular with Deadpool that I can tell you I remember scene by scene and will say it made me laugh out loud. I think I was shocked at first, which produced laughs because, oh my gosh, did they really just do that? Or, oh my god, that is horrifying. But when you see it a second time, a lot of those feelings kind of wash away. And then you see it a third time, and then you're like, okay, maybe I need to take a break from Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool? I don't know. And then the sequel comes out, and it's one of the, most average films that I've ever seen. I mean, it's definitely on that bottom tier for when it came out, and I left the theater thinking, boy, this is all they got. I mean, they don't have anything other than Ryan Reynolds being zany, throwing F-bombs and making jokes about certain body parts, and it's really just nothing that carries over for me. And yeah, I really do think it's way too overrated. A lot of people definitely talk this movie up as one of the best comic book movies, but guess what? We've seen better rated R superhero films, okay? I mean, there's one on this list that I think is a better film than Deadpool, and I still think that one's overrated. Boy, you guys are gonna hammer me for that one. But before we move on to that film, let's talk about the next overrated film on my list. Avatar, directed by James Cameron, starring Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, and Sigourney Weaver. All-star cast, all-star director, top of the line effects, the best 3D movie I think that I've seen in theaters. Now, I'm saying the best 3D and giving that sort of adjective because it used 3D in the only way I can tell you that I would justify spending $20-something for a movie theater ticket. I mean, that is an outrageous price, but that's how much I paid when I saw it at my local Cinemark. And let me tell you, the experience was wild. Seeing it on the biggest screen at Cinemark was great. The 3D effects were amazing, and the technology advanced the way we look at movies nowadays. I mean, if it wasn't for Avatar, we don't get 3D movies that we're getting nowadays. Yes, I commend James Cameron. Yeah, James Cameron, you did a great job with the technology, but see how I'm not talking about the story or the acting? I love this cast, but I just don't think the script was good at all. And not only that, it's Dances with Wolves. I mean, it really is the same thing. I will give a pass to a film that takes some elements from previous stories that we've already seen or heard of, but here it didn't necessarily try to be different. It was just aliens covered in blue and then Dances with Wolves. It was such a mess of a script. It was boring, and honestly, it was just so tiring. I mean, I got through the end of that film and I thought, okay, this is a movie I'd never want to revisit. I really think it's just not a fun film anymore. And okay, yes, the first time I saw it, I was captivated again by the 3D. But then I saw it for a second time and I thought, yeah, this is not holding up at all. Like I said earlier in this video, yes, I was on a road trip with my cousins and my aunt in Connecticut. We're going to this awesome winery. It's gonna be a fun time, but it's a 3-hour drive. I'm like, man, what are we gonna do for 3 hours? So what do you think they put on? Avatar. And what do you think they put on the way back? Avatar. And I wanted to take the mini TV screen out of the back of the seat and literally chuck it out of the window. And that's the problem with Avatar, is that it doesn't really hold up anymore. And the film, outside of technology, really is just not worth another watch. It's definitely overrated, and the fact that it was at one point the highest grossing film ever blows my mind. Of course, you have to factor in the 3D ticket prices and that they released it again. Alrighty, moving on. We're gonna talk about the last overrated film on this list. You guys, I don't want you to yell at me, but rather I'd like you to tell me in the comments why this movie resonated with you so much, because it really didn't click with me. And it's not that I hate the film. I think it's beautifully shot in terms of cinematography. And yes, James Mangold knows what he's doing with this film as director. But Logan, starring Hugh Jackman, Patrick Stewart, Daphne Keane, Stephen Merchant, I don't think it is a good film. It's okay, but it's very much on the lower rung of decent films. I think that for the year it came out, everyone was hyped for a rated R superhero film, and they wanted to see Wolverine in his gritty, authentic nature. They wanted to see him really on the big screen be portrayed in the worst way possible in terms of blood, and I don't necessarily think it was a film that worked. It used the gore to really overshadow a lot of the inconsistencies in the story. Not only was the pacing a little rough, but I think the storyline is lazy, guys. Yes, we're following Hugh Jackman on his decline. Professor X is definitely, deteriorating in terms of his health, but I think Hugh Jackman does a good job acting, but I don't think it really covers up for the problems in the plot. There's so many holes, and I love Hugh Jackman. His acting is amazing and he's still trending upwards, but I think that Patrick Stewart, everybody else, it just seems like they were there to me, and I don't necessarily feel like the movie impacted me in any which way. Daphne Keane does a decent job. I think the second half of the film is just total cheese. You're gonna tell me that last scene didn't really make you guys sigh when she turns the cross where the grave is, where, spoiler, Wolverine is dead, and turns into an X? I'm like, come on, man, really? Like, that's so on the nose, it's not even funny. And okay, I get it, seeing Professor X kind of mentally dwindle away is hard to really stomach, sure, but the gore, you can't tell me that makes up for a lot of bad story. It really is just that. It's a bad story. And then the most egregious thing that Logan does. The clone Logan? Really? That's your villain in the film? I was so beside myself when I saw that. I thought, okay, we're getting really lazy with this story. Logan is a film that, yes, looks good, and on the surface, it does sound like one of the better superhero films, but I can honestly tell you that that film is totally overrated. People always attack me when I say that Logan is just not that good. I don't think it's terrible, but it's just like really on the lower tier of superhero films for me. Now, you look at an Avengers Endgame, Infinity War, Winter Soldier, and those are movies that I can tell you in the superhero genre that I want to go and watch again and again. But with Logan, man, I just think people talk way too highly of that film. And because it's an R-rated superhero film with a ton of gore and Patrick Stewart, playing Professor X in this different role, I don't think that necessarily covers up for the bad writing in this film. And yeah, at the end of the movie, I was like, this is not what I, one, expected, and two, would consider a good superhero film. Alrighty, you guys, well, there you have it. Those are 5 movies I feel are overrated. In case you skipped all the way to the end to see which one was at the top of this list, let's go ahead and review. So we got La La Land, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Deadpool, Avatar, and Logan. But you know what? I'm curious to see what you guys think. Go ahead and tell me in the comments below what you feel are overrated movies in your opinion. And do you agree with me or do you disagree with me? Because, hey, we'll have that discussion or debate. But if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the big red button below and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to go ahead and like this video, share with your friends, and follow Real James on social media. If you want to come and have a conversation with me on Twitter, let's go. It is so much fun to talk movies on that platform. And you guys, over the next few weeks, we got some awesome reviews coming through. And yeah, there are some titles there that I'm really excited for, so you're not going to want to miss out. Alrighty, you guys, again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.